Okay, this tutorial is going to be on editing dialogue, and before you actually edit dialogue, you've got to make sure that the dialogue obviously has been shot properly and that people know what they're doing when they're shooting it. And the way that I'm going to be teaching here is the way dialogue has been shot with a single camera, has been shot with a shotgun microphone and one microphone here. We're not miking both people. This is pretty much the traditional way of shooting and shooting dialogue as well. Let me explain how this was shot. Unless you're using like wireless mics on multiple actors, this is kind of the method that's used with a shotgun microphone. So first of all, in this scene, we've got, sorry about my crude drawings here, but we've got a table with two people sitting down, and they're kind of talking toward each other here. Sitting down and looking toward each other and talking. This was shot with, let me draw a camera over here. Got a camera over here. We've got basically a master shot that was shot of the entire scene here. There's a little bit of movement here and there, but sometimes a static shot, but a master shot covering the entire script, the entire scene of these guys sitting down. And then we kind of move in and get things like medium shots kind of over the shoulder, where we get a shot of one person over here, of this person over here, and then the other side of this person over here. So we basically, we have JD on this side. So you got JD on this side, and you got Nick on this side. So what we end up with is a master shot of the entire scene. Then we have some medium shots of JD and some medium shots of Nick. Now, when it cuts to, now let me explain master shot. The microphone is usually, and it's a wider shot. What you're seeing with the master shot is this sort of shot. We've got one person over here. Here's the table. One person over here. There's their bodies. But the microphone, so this person's, sitting in a chair. This person's sitting in a chair over here. But the microphone has to be kind of positioned up here out of the shot, so it's out of the frame and you don't see it. With the microphone out there, you're not going to get very good audio. So this is what's called reference audio. The reference audio is outside the shot. It's not very close. It's not very good audio. And it's, in most cases, not very usable unless the master shot is a little bit tighter and you're using something like an indoor mic. With that, now, when we cut to the medium shots and close-ups of JD and Nick, basically getting let's show shot of JD here. Here's JD sitting here, and he's kind of looking this direction. Now, the microphone is going to be positioned just out of this shot and very close to JD, so the audio is going to be good. This is good audio right here on JD. Whenever Nick says his line, JD, the microphone is still on JD. JD says all of his lines, but Nick says his. So you're going to hear really good audio on JD, and you're going to hear kind of crummy audio on Nick, which is fine. Now, as we cut to the other angle here of the medium shot, you're going to see Nick sitting here. Sorry for my crude drawings once again. And Nick is looking this way at JD. The microphone is going to be positioned on Nick the entire time. So we're going to hear his good audio and JD's bad audio. And the way this works is you're going to be basically cutting in. Let me show the version of the script here. And move down. I'm going to move down into where the dialogue starts at the table. Like this little portion right here where JD and Nick are sitting there talking to each other. He reads the letter and he looks up and says, "They're gone." Cuts to Nick, where'd they go? Cuts to JD, some kind of colony. And cuts to Nick, colony, there's no colony. So basically, the way we're going to edit this at first, maybe this isn't the way we want it visually, but you're going to edit. The general rule for editing dialogue is editing audio first. You're going to edit for audio first, and not just dialogue, but movement and person moving around. You're going to stay on that person because the mic is on that person for that shot. You're going to stay on that person, even though that's not the way it's going to look visually in the end. But you're editing for audio to get all the good audio in there. So we'll cut to JD saying his line, Nick saying his line, JD saying his line, Nick saying his line. And at the beginning here, when JD walks in, he yells, "Kathy, Nicole," stops, "Where are they?" We're going to stay on JD saying all of his lines until it gets to the part where Nick sits down and says his line, little small line, JD, and that's it. We're going to cut to that. And that's the way you edit first. That is creating basically an A-roll edit, or A-roll edit before we start adding B-roll or the reactions and other things and getting arriving to a rough cut. So Let's go ahead and start that. So just so you, I had to show this so you kind of understand how all this is set up. If a person is on camera, the microphone should be on that person the entire time they are on camera, and it's going to be their audio. This is on JD, so it's going to be all of his audio. This is on Nick over here, so that's Nick's audio over here, and this is JD's audio. So JD's audio, Nick's audio. Okay, with that being said, I'm going to grab a clip here and create a sequence. I'm going to grab that sequence, drag it out there so it's in. So there's my sequence. I've got a clip in it. I'm just going to delete the clip now that my sequence is set up and call this, I don't know what scene number this is. We'll just call it like scene 5 edit or something like that. Okay, now we're going to start editing. So the very first thing in the script here, I'm going to go to the script and look. They both walk into the place. JD stops and yells, or on the way in, he yells, Kathy, Nicole. He comes to a stop. Nick's along behind them. Where are they? And starts yelling, Kathy, Nicole again. Let's look into that and find that shot. I'm going to open this up in a separate tab, and I'm going to option double click on that, or alt double click, and go to icon view. So I've got a separate tab with all my footage in it. I'm going to tilde over this and increase my size here of my clips and find the shot that I need. Okay, for the opening shot, we've got 2 shots right here. We've got this open deli shot here where they walk up to the camera. It's more of a close-up. Now look at this close-up here. With that close-up there, the microphone is just going to be barely out of the frame there, and this is going to be pretty good audio. With this open crane shot, the microphone's a ways away from them. Look at the headroom there, so it's not going to be as good as audio. But this might be a cooler opening shot, but right now I am editing for audio, so I'm going to grab the good audio segments first. So I'm going to go to open deli here, double-click on it, load it into my viewer. And I'm going to do an in point and out point as he walks in. And here's his line.
Kathy, Nicole. Where are they?
And he says, Kathy, Nicole, where are they? So, so that's his line right there. So I'm going to grab the beginning of that, go to the in point, or go to the beginning, hit I for in point.
Kathy, Nicole. Kathy? Nicole?
Let that trail off, put an out point, hit period, drop it into my timeline, and now I have that shot into my timeline. So we're going to get to the dialogue here soon, but now I'm going to cut to the next person who the audio belongs to, and that is after he yells Kathy, Nicole twice, the next line is JD. So we're going to cut to this next person who says JD, which is Nick right here. He sits down, so we're going to play that whole clip. As he sits down, we're going to play that whole clip and let him say his line. So I'm going to double click on this. There's a shot here. Okay, so here's his shot. He sits down in the chair and he grabs this letter. We might want to see this at a wider, more establishing shot, but we're not doing that right now. We're editing for sound. So I'm going to do an in point right before he sits down. So we have all that moment as he sits down. We have all that sound. He grabs the letter and says
JD.
his line JD. Now right before JD grabs it, that becomes JD's audio. So I'm going to go right before. You can hear that little letter right there. But I'm going to go right to where it's clean before he grabs and put an out point. Shift 3 to go to my timeline, hit N to go to the end of my timeline, period to drop it in, and now we have these 2 clips. So he finishes his line, and it cuts to the next shot, and the audio belongs to Nick. But this is not how it's going to look visually. Once again, we're first editing for audio.
JD.
Okay, so now I'm going to cut to JD and let JD sit down. I'm going to cut to this shot. All right. So here's a shot where JD sees the letter. So right here, I'm putting an in point right before he reaches out and grabs it. And then you can hear that same letter noise right there. Right there. So I'm going to put that in. Right there, he grabs the letter. There's a loud clink noise we can take out, but he sits down. So I'm going to put an out point and drop that down in the timeline. We're getting to the dialogue, I swear, here in a second. But as he sits down, here's one of the better shots. We see him sit down here. I'm going to cut to this shot here. In point. Let him breathe for a second. And even right here, there's a long point where he's breathing. We might be seeing a reaction of Nick, but we're going to cut to that later. Right now, we're editing for audio. And he says they're gone. Going to pause, out point, drop it in the timeline. So now we've got so far,
Kathy! Nicole!
he comes in, yells. I'm going to skim through this. Yells it again, walks out. We cut to Nick's audio, where he sits down, grabs the paper, says,
JD.
JD grabs it. Timing's not right on that, but I'll fix it later. Sits down, looks at the letter for several seconds. This is kind of boring because we're staying on his face while he reads a letter, but we'll fix that later. Looks up and says, they're gone. So now we go back to the script. This is where he looks up, they're gone. Nick says, where'd they go? Some kind of colony. Colony, there's no colony. So what we're going to do now is do this process of cutting back and forth. Even if it's a simple little word like, oh, or something like that, you're going to cut to that person for the duration of their line where they say, oh, then cut back to the other person. Even if it's a very long-winded speech that he's giving, you're going to stay on that person the entire time. Even though it's visually boring, you're staying on that person the entire time. And then later, you will do the cutaways and inserts and back timing and roll editing and L cuts and J cuts, which we're going to be showing here. So it's kind of complex dialogue editing here we're doing, but this is professional as well. This stuff looks good. So now we're going to cut to Nick's audio here. We hear JD in the background very quietly. He says they're gone. You can barely hear it because the mic is not on him. The camera is on Nick, so the microphone is on him. Over here, the microphone is on JD. Here, it's on Nick. So I'm going to go to Nick, put an in point.
Where'd they go?
Where'd they go? Out point. Drop that into the timeline. So now here in the timeline, we've got they're gone. Where'd they go? And I'm going to cut back to JD. Back to JD. And he says, and we hear the where'd they go, but it's ever so quiet because now the microphone is on JD. You can barely hear it.
Some kind of colony.
And now we can hear him quite clearly say some kind of colony. In point,
Some kind of colony.
says his line, out point, drop it in. And a couple more edits here. I'm going to do this back and forth, and then I'm going to come back and show you what we've got here. You're going to do this throughout the entire scene, and that is your first cut. You cut for audio for the very first cut. All the way through, you cut to whoever's line it is or whoever's audio it is for the duration of their line or movement, and then you're going to go back and edit the scene visually. So I'm going to do the rest of the edits for this little portion here, then we'll come back and I'll show you what we've done. Okay. So now what we've got is basically this right here. Let me play this. Showing you all this stuff till he sits down, but let me show you just this little dialogue, this little back and forth scene here that we've got on the script. They're gone. Where'd they go? Some kind of colony. Colony. There's no colony. And on this right here, where he says there's no colony, he said they all be wiped out. He realizes his mistake right there. Right there, we're going to have a reaction, but we haven't added that yet. And he says, "I'm sorry." So there's a reaction right there as JD gets up and crosses the floor here. So, but we're not showing that yet. We're just editing for dialogue. So listen to this and watch this.
They're gone. Where'd they go? Some kind of colony.
There's no colony. Not one that would survive. I mean, they'd all be wiped out. Hey, I'm sorry.
So right now, audio-wise, this sounds good. Visually, it's not looking as where we need it. So now I'm going to show you some techniques. That is your A cut. That's your A rough cut, right? Your A roll rough cut right there. So I'm going to go back and we're going to start editing this visually. Everything plays out timing-wise. The scene plays out the timing that it should be with the A roll there. But now we need to start editing the cutaways, the inserts, and back timing, and I'm going to show you roll editing. I'm going to show you back timing. I'm going to show you L cuts and J cuts, which are some standard dialogue editing techniques here. First of all, right here, when he says, Kathy, Nicole, we don't want to see, we don't want to use a dolly shot. I want to have that nice little crane shot that opens up the scene. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go to where he says Nicole here, because this is a good, right there, I can hear him go on the Nicole. right there. I'm going to get on the Nicole right there, and I'm going to put an endpoint on my timeline. Actually, I don't even need to do that because I'm going to drag a clip down in, but you can do 3-point editing if you wish. I'm not doing that right now. I'm going to go to my wide shot, my open and crane shot, and I'm going to find the exact same point where he says Nicole. Kathy. And right there, the microphone's farther away, so the audio doesn't sound as good. But I'm going to get right to the point where he can say, where he does the cut on Nicole. And I can hear him go right there, so I hear the cut on Nicole. I'm going to put an endpoint. I'm going to play into this a little bit. Just put an arbitrary out point right about there, where I approximately want to cut out of this shot. But I'm going to grab just the video for this, drag it down, and sync it to the beginning of my playhead right there. Right here on this clip, he's saying K on Nicole, and right here he's saying K on Nicole. Now all I have to do is backtime this, and everything should kind of stay in sync previous to that. I'm going to grab my whole timeline, scoot it over a little bit, and backtime this clip a little bit, and some ambient audio can be added later. But now we have this. So watch this here as he walks in. We've got no audio belonging to this clip here, but it's borrowing from the audio below that. We've matched the timing on the Nicole. So watch this.
Kathy! Nicole! Where are they?
And there we go. That matches up. This video up here matches up. You can see his mouth barely say Nicole. And it matches up, but it is not the audio that belongs to this clip, but it looks like it does. So now it looks like we had a couple cameras here as it cuts from the crane shot to the dolly shot, which is nice. Then he walks off. So now we can do the same thing here, and we can use one of our wide establishing shots, our master shot. We got this establishing shot where Nick comes walking in and sits down. So this is going to be the same thing. He walks in, sits down, grabs the letter. So what I'm going to do here is find a point where he grabs the letter, reaches out right there. Right there's where he reaches out. I'm going to kind of find the same point here. And there's some continuity issues with this. He reaches out with his left hand here, his right hand here. So I'm going to just get him where he sits down here, where he's just starting to sit down. His hand starts to reach out. In point, and kind of put an arbitrary out point there. And I'm going to get this on the same area right here where he just kind of barely sits down right there. And let's see how this looks. I'm going to grab that in, drag it, back time it, and see if we get lucky here. Back time it a little bit. Actually, I can tell I'm going to have to shorten the end here because he grabs it with the wrong hand. So I'm going to back time that to get rid of where he reaches out with his hand there. Okay, well, let's watch this. It cuts to the establishing shot there. I'm going to move that all over a little bit because this is, there's a little bit more time that takes place there where he starts walking away. There we go. So watch this now. He walks out, cuts to this shot of him walking in, and sits down. The sitting down timing is not quite matched. Let's back time that a little bit more. And if that doesn't match, I can just grab this clip, drag it over, and get it so it does match. Still a little bit more over. And there we go. And that's not so bad. I can keep doing that until the timing's right. Or add a little bit more time here. Adding more time to the scene. I can hear a cut there, but I can get rid of that later. But there we go. That looks a lot better. So it's just getting everything to kind of match up. Sits down, and the letter's there. Reaches out, grabs the letter. And perfect.
JD.
And now, when he says JD, say I want to cut to JD a little bit sooner there. Now I'm going to show you roll edit, and I'm going to show you how to roll edit. We're going to show you J cuts and L cuts. This is where it kind of gets fun here. So now I'm going to, you can lock your audio if you want to, or you can use the Alt or Option key on your Mac or PC. Alt or Option. To unlock your video and audio temporarily. I'm going to choose my roll edit tool, which is N. It's this little tool over here. N as in Nancy. I'm going to come down here on the video and grab this. I'm going to hold down Option so it doesn't touch the audio. Notice if you just grab it and start moving it, it screws up your audio. If you feel unsafe about that, you can just go over and lock your audio. I don't feel unsafe about it. I'm good. So I'm just going to hold down Option, grab my video, and I'm going to drag it back. And I'm going to time this. Where it says JD, holds it out right about there. because I kind of want that turnaround reaction of JD here. So now you got, this is called an L cut, where the video overlaps, the next video cut overlaps into the previous video cut here and borrows from the audio here. So now he says,
JD.
and it cuts immediately, and we have the reaction now, which is nice. He grabs the paper, sits down. If you want to remove that audio really quick, you can just hold down Option and your blade, cut that audio out right there, and borrow audio from somewhere else. Actually, I'm just going to grab this audio right here, drag it over, and extend it and see how that works. Perfect. So we got rid of that little clank there, borrowed some audio from a different clip. He sits down. Now if we want to just like have him sit down and cut to his face, once again I can hit N as in Nancy for my roll tool, hold down Option, grab this and drag it over and get a little bit of his face kind of sitting down there. This is a little bit mistimed. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to do a ripple edit to kind of to time this. Right there he's sat down and leans forward. Here he's starting to lean forward. So we want to kind of get that. We want to after the lean forward here. So I'm going to do a ripple edit, which is B, and drag off a little bit of time to get this to match a little bit better. And I pulled off a little section of time there, shortened this clip to get rid of the double lean forward. And now I'm going to, now that this is timed out, timed up a little better here, I'm going to hold down Option, do my roll edit back, and see now you can see this is matched up better. As he sits down, now I can cut to that, do an L cut as he sits down into his shot. There we go. Beautiful. Now visually this is starting to work. Let me show you a way to do reaction shots. It's really nice here. What I'm going to do is I'm going to go down to this shot here. I'm going to borrow from this shot, but earlier to do a reaction shot. He's sitting there messing with his leg. So I'm going to grab this shot here. There's a cool little trick. Hold down Option, select this clip. I'm going to actually Option and drag up. It'll duplicate it. I'm going to grab this and back time it over. And here is all the reaction shot that I need right here as he's kind of fixing his hurt leg here. But now I can just grab this and shorten it. And it back times it over this, and he's doing all of his stuff while JD's doing his stuff here. And now we have a reaction. As it sounds, starts reading, and it's just, and actually I'm going to drag that back just a little further here. Cuts to him fixing his leg, squinting or grimacing, cuts back just in time for him to say, they're gone. Okay, so now the rest of this can just be L cuts, J cuts, reactions. So he says they're gone. Cuts to him, looks up. And actually, I'm going to just take a little bit off that right before he reacts. And I hit B for my ripple tool. Drag this over. There we go. Shorten that a little bit. And he reacts immediately. And let me show you an instance of a J cut, whether it's needed or not here. Let me show you an instance of a J cut. Show you the difference between L cut and J cut. If I grab this roll edit, hold down Option, drag it over. This is an L cut. Now watch the difference here. We hear his audio when he says,
Where'd they go?
He says, where'd they go? The audio, his audio bleeds over into the cut.
Where'd they go? Some kind of.
And it makes it actually kind of smooth here. So actually I'm going to do Option and drag it over, and we're going to do an L cut here. And now watch, he says, where'd they go? And then we hear JD's audio start before it does the cut now. And this is a J cut. The other way was an L cut. This is a J cut. So now watch the difference between the J cut and the L cut. Here's the L cut.
Where'd they go? Some kind of colony.
See that? And then let me undo this and go back to a J cut and show you what difference we get.
Where'd they go? Some kind of colony.
So it really depends on what you want to do artistically. If you want to cut to his shot for a reaction while the other guy is talking, or vice versa. With this, I kind of like a little bit of where'd they go, maybe a little bit of a J cut there. But now I'm going to extend this here, his reaction there, and do 2 J cuts in a row. So watch this.
Where'd they go? Some kind of colony.
There's no colony.
But then we miss his reaction, so that kind of doesn't work. But it just really depends on what you're trying to do. Let's try 2 L cuts instead. So just like I said, depends on where you're going artistically. Here's with 2 L cuts. Now watch this.
Where'd they go? Some kind of colony.
There's no colony.
And that's good, but I want to see his reaction a little bit earlier. So I'm just going to hit B, and we're going to shorten this right before, we can see that waveform right before he does his reaction. Tighten that up a little bit. Here it is.
Some kind of colony.
There's no colony.
Okay. Now the last thing I'm going to do on this little section to fix this up is I'm going to make a little reaction shot. So I'm going to borrow, when he says there's no colony,
Would survive. I mean, they'd all be wiped out.
they'd all be wiped out. We want to see JD's reaction, as Nick says that. So I'm going to grab, same trick as before, Option, pull up, and I'm going to forward time this over this clip here. And right there is his reaction. See his reaction as he gets up and leaves? So I'm going to shorten that just down to the reaction here. And we're going to get that to the point, I'm going to slide that to the point where he screws up and says his line and screws it up.
I mean, they'd all be wiped out.
Right there he reacts, and then we cut back to him. So that worked out maybe a little bit over.
I mean, they'd all be wiped out.
There's a reaction, gets up,
I'm sorry.
and he says he's sorry. So perfect. So now I will, so that is basic dialogue there. Remember, the first rule is edit for audio first. And then after you get the audio kind of laid down, his line, her line, his line, her line, his line, his line, whoever's speaking, you stay on their camera shots until the duration of their sound is over with. And then when you're done with that, you can go back and start editing visually. And then from there, it's back timing, matching, roll editing, L cuts, J cuts, reaction shots, until you get it the way you need it visually. And I'll play this clip so you can see it once it's done here, so you can kind of see the way this plays out. It's not the entire scene, but it's the first portion of the scene. But hopefully you get a good sense for how a dialogue is shot and edited professionally. So, thank you.
Kathy! Nicole! Where are they? Kathy? Nicole? JD.
They're gone.
Where'd they go?
Some kind of colony.
There's no colony. Not one of them would survive. I mean, they'd all be wiped out. Hey, I'm sorry.